Re-Zero, Volume 2, Chapter 5, Part 4, The Morning He Yearned For. Subaru thought that the scene he saw while unconscious was a nightmare. He was in a well-lit room, at a dining table with Amelia. Roswell was in the seat of honor, with Beatrice there pouring black tea to Puck, his head diving into a plate right beside her. Amelia chided Puck for kidding around at the dinner table, and Rem wove in and out, performing her duties, while Ram attended to Roswell, ignoring all else. Subaru just laughed. The others laughed with him. And so, he saw a nightmare full of happiness and warmth. It was a bitter dream, a dream that brought sadness and a sense of retching loss. His soul whittled down to the point of pain. Subaru's agony made him forget to breathe. Suddenly, his face eased. He realized someone was holding his hand. The warmth conveyed to his palm seemed to push aside his negative emotions. Then, he saw a light. A white light. A dazzling light. A light that seemed to guide his consciousness back to...
Are you finally awake?
When Subaru opened his eyes, the orange sky of the setting sun was right in front of him. He realized, too, that he'd passed out on the ground lying face up. He recalled, too, what he'd been thinking about just before, as if it had consumed his consciousness. Namely, that he'd chickened out from suicide, wept shamefully, and fell asleep from exhaustion. It was too shameful to be funny or pitiable. He acted like a baby. No, Subaru was far lower than a baby, for they had no capacity to sin.
Could you say something, I wonder?
Something.
What an old, rotten joke. You are quite something, joking with that glum face.
Beatrice spat out a bitter reply as she tossed aside the hand of Subaru's she was touching. Beatrice was wearing the same dress as always, something that looked extremely out of place on top of the cliff. It was like a landscape painting where a lone little girl stood out. No sane person goes hiking dressed like that.
I had no intention of hiking in rustic mountains to begin with. Perhaps you should not have fled to a place like this and cried yourself to sleep.
Beatrice was waving the sleeve of her dress, making her annoyed statement, when Subaru realized just what Beatrice was doing outside the manor, to the point of showing up all the way over here. Why?
Why what, I wonder?
Why did you come? While Beatrice had honored her pact to protect Subaru, he could tell her nothing. Seeing Subaru's words catching, Beatrice made a sour, exasperated face and snorted.
I made a pact to keep you safe. Having you toss yourself off a cliff to kill yourself would be an affront to my dignity.
Weren't you supposed to be my bodyguard only till... this morning?
I do not recall saying anything about a time limit. You assumed incorrectly that there was one, I suppose.
Subaru groped through his memories while Beatrice, looking at him out of one eye, glanced away. Beatrice was using that contradiction between their assumptions about the details to continue her pact with Subaru. It suddenly struck Subaru how a girl with a viper's tongue and a foul-tempered horse's personality like Beatrice could show such deep compassion. Beatrice had not forsaken him. If that was true, then just maybe he didn't have to give up. This is no time for vain hopes. Beatrice shook her head, pouring cold water on Subaru's easy way out.
You cannot regain what you have lost. There is little more I can do for you. You can no longer explain things to the older sister. You threw away that chance.
I'd have told her if I could, he wanted to shout. Subaru would have confessed all and pled for forgiveness if his heart wouldn't have been crushed in the process. Not because it would help Ram. He knew it wouldn't, simply for his own peace of mind. At a time like this, am I an idiot? Yeah, I'm an idiot. Subaru had come this far by putting on a face, apologizing, pleading, protecting himself over and over. And now, he'd been driven to the top of a cliff, physically and mentally, with nowhere to run. Run, 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 and run some more was exactly how Subaru had arrived at this point. If you know I can't go back, what do you plan on doing for me?
At the very least, I will have you die where I cannot see, so as not to disturb my dreams, I suppose. If you wish to flee, I shall take you beyond this domain.
Beatrice's kindness, wrapped in severity, cut deeply into his heart. Beatrice's expression was cold, her gaze acidic, as if beholding an annoyance. Even so, the kindness of the intent behind her words struck Subaru like no other. No doubt Beatrice spoke the truth. If he desired to flee, she would agree and aid him. He didn't know what waited for him after fleeing, but it couldn't get any worse than this. His own foolishness having wrecked his oasis, what was wrong with throwing away everything and running? Blood trickled a little from the painful cut left on his cheek by the blade of wind. Touching the wound, Subaru realized too late that he'd felt its kind before. Subaru's very soul remembered its sharpness. When he had been fleeing from Rem in the mountains, a blade of wind had severed Subaru's right leg at the knee. As he touched the wound, Subaru's instincts told him it was the same magic. The magic that gouged out my neck at the end, too. So they double-teamed me. His late understanding of how he had died deemed the silent despair in his heart. Even now, he could still hear Ram's hate-filled roar, her heart-rending wails from losing Rem. That was the moment. That was the point of no return. Subaru ought to have never fled the manor. Even if he didn't have the resolve to endure the pain, he should have faced Ram and spoken to her. He'd missed his chance, and now their hearts were separated forever. Having let it slip through his hands once, Subaru could never have it back. At least in that world. With a low, gloomy voice, Beatrice interrupted his silent contemplation.
The older sister endured for the younger. The younger sister lived for the older. Neither could exist without the other.
Beatrice ran her fingers through her own ornate hair, not looking back at Subaru as she continued to speak.
Now that one half is lost, the other can never return. Roswell is unlikely to forgive it either.
What do you mean by that? What do you know? He felt like she was avoiding something really important. Subaru urged Beatrice to share her true thoughts, but she moved her fingers from her hair to Subaru's sleeve, tugging and gently pulling him to the ground as she extended her foot. Subaru was in shock at how he seemed to flow right into the ground. Beatrice tossed back her hair.
Does it truly matter to you, I wonder? These last 4 days, you spent most of your time holed up in your room and had little contact with them. Would the older sister let you press her about these matters now? I think not. It has nothing to do with you.
It's not like I don't know anything about them, he would have said, but Subaru's words died on his tongue. His repeated loops had given him more than 2 weeks of time with them. Subaru could have responded that he'd forged memories with them during the time that this Beatrice knew nothing about. But he did not, for he suddenly realized something. Subaru realized it was possible he knew nothing of Ram and Rem, not their true faces, their feelings, or the bond between them, just as Beatrice had stated. Subaru wondered what he really had learned about them during those first 3 lives. What was the point of Subaru feeling such loss and despair when he truly didn't know anything about them? Was it all really just a bad dream? What was it that Subaru could draw on to refute Beatrice, who looked sternly down at Subaru at that very moment? Or did Subaru not know anything, not a single thing, about the two of them? Even though he'd thought of them as precious people he wanted to protect. So in the end, I got all worked up and pathetic all on my own, not knowing, not understanding anything. It has nothing to do with you. Subaru knew nothing. He'd beaten away all his chances. He had nothing left but the skin on his back. Within the darkness covering his eyes, the memories of the days he'd spent at the manor broke apart, one by one, into dust. Subaru's heart, too, shattered. Lying on his back, Subaru put his palms to his face and wailed at his own powerlessness. Had it all been a utopia beyond his reach from the beginning? Was everything Subaru had seen simply a dream, the time he'd spent there a mere illusion? Subaru looked like he was about to break out in tears when Beatrice called to him.
How long are you going to stay like that, I wonder? Stand before she finds you.
Impatient, from Subaru still not moving, she roughly grabbed the palms covering his face and yanked them up. As his field of vision opened, the lightweight girl used her entire weight to haul Subaru to his feet. The sensation conveyed by her palms took away his thoughts. Ignoring Beatrice's intent in rousing Subaru so insistently, he felt her palms, weighing how they felt.
Hey, what do you think? Why so interested in my palms, I wonder?
I felt these hands before, just like this. Earlier, did you?
I shall regret it for the rest of my days. Perhaps you are simply too wretched as you slept like that?
Abruptly, Beatrice looked away, giving him only her cheek. Subaru flexed his hands several times, reflecting on the warm, peaceful sensation he'd felt from them while he slept. While Subaru had his nightmare, a dream with agonizing sense of despair and loss, over and over again. That it hadn't been the only time he'd felt warmth when in pain. It had happened before. Back then, someone held both my hands. Beatrice suspiciously raised an eyebrow. Subaru brought not only his right hand before him, but his left as well. It was difficult for one person to hold both hands of someone who was asleep. He doubted a single person could lie on a bed alongside another and hold both hands without difficulty. So why did he feel like both his hands had been held? The reason was simple. Rem. Both had held Subaru's hands while he slept. It had been here on the fourth loop, before anything had happened at Roswell Manor. Seeing Subaru suffer as he slept, both of them had taken pity on him and given him some small measure of compassion. "I'll kill you!" the hate-filled voice had cried out, her rage pounding into him like a curse. The cruel words had scarred his heart, but more than that. "Can't you make the crying stop?" It was Ram's sad cry of despair at having her other half ripped from her that never left his ears. Some corner of Subaru's heart, which should have been shattered already, cried out. By nature, Subaru was the sort to pick the path of least resistance. He didn't want to feel pain, suffering, despair. Just the thought of living with such burdens made him want to run. What stupid things am I thinking here? For he thought he didn't want to run anymore. He wanted to do something. I've lived this time and everything. His shameless plea to Beatrice had allowed him to reach the 5th day with ease. It was the thought of what had greeted him that very day that settled Subaru's decision. That's right. My life's mine. That's why. What's wrong with fighting for an easier, more enjoyable life? I'll decide how to use it. The moment Subaru said it, he crossed a line inside. There was no going back. Beatrice furrowed her brows at Subaru's words. However, before he could ask her why she was doing that, her eyes looked toward the forest, full of caution.
You dithered too much.
Beatrice's regret-tinged words came as the rustle of the wind through the forest trees deepened. Mixed with the sounds of the swaying leaves, the sound of footsteps reached Subaru's ears, too. He turned around. A girl with pink hair stood before him. Ram, the forest at her back, glared at Subaru. I finally found you. You will go no farther. Pain swept over Subaru's heart as he beheld the look on Ram's face, thick with hatred. As she stood there, Ram had none of her usual meticulous look. Branches had torn and punctured her skirt. There was no sign of the headdress normally on her head. Her pink hair, buffered by the wind, had lost its usual beauty. The sisters dressed each other and did each other's hair. Subaru knew this. He remembered that they'd told him at some point. He knew several other secrets between the two sisters.
Would you relent, I wonder? So long as the pact is active, I cannot hold back against anyone.
Lady Beatrice, it is you who should stand aside. I cannot hold back against you, either.
A joke, I suppose. Did I hear you say to hold back in regards to me?
Perhaps you've forgotten you are not in the mansion, Lady Beatrice. Do you truly believe you can protect that man away from the archive, here in the forest? Subaru held his silence as the two girls continued to square off before him. Beatrice's words of regret proved that Ram's words were no empty boast. Beatrice's strength came with limitations, and this situation was beyond them. Even so, Beatrice stubbornly refused to move, upholding her pact in front of Subaru. From behind, Subaru reached out toward Beatrice. Then, boing! He grabbed hold of the girl's two ornate hair rolls and pulled on them, hard. He let go. The large amount of hair bounced quite generously. Bouncy, bouncy. That felt pretty good.
What?
Her eyes wide open, her tongue quivering, Beatrice turned around, all flustered. Subaru inclined his head slightly as he looked at her.
What are you doing, I wonder? You have a death wish, I suppose?
Don't be silly. I don't want to die one tiny bit. When you die, it should be one time, to end your life for good. I truly believe that. As he spoke, he patted Beatrice on the shoulder and calmly walked past her. Straight ahead, Ram glared at Subaru's face with astonishment. As Subaru walked before her, she heightened her guard, exhaling from pursed lips. Quite some nerve. Finally resigned to your fate? Not exactly. More like, I decided to do something. Not understanding Subaru's intent, Ram scowled. What? Sorry, because I was sloppy. I brought you girls so much sadness. So you did do something to Rem? No, sorry, but I honestly don't know. There's so much I don't know, but... Subaru's words trailed off as he took a moment to breathe. There's so much I don't know, but I think I know one thing now. What's the point? Ram shouted back, unable to accept Subaru's display of resolve as anything but childish games. Ram swung down a foot, kicking the earth like she was stamping her feet. Rem's already dead! There's no taking that back! What good is it that you know something now? I'm not gonna say I can do anything. It's because I couldn't do anything that things ended up like this. I know more than anyone that's not gonna convince anyone. He wasn't being defiant. Even now, regret deeply pierced his heart. He hated himself for his own stupidity and weakness. If he could die from shame, he might have been dead already. Still, his shameful behavior, his shameful living, his pathetic helplessness. These things had brought him to this place, and thus to his conclusion.
And what is it you know about Rem and me?
You have a point. I don't know any of the important stuff between you, but Subaru had spent almost 20 days together with them. They didn't know that, and he was unable to tell them. But Subaru remembered. Even if they had forgotten, Subaru's soul still remembered. He'd seen them, laughed with them, spent time with them. The worlds Subaru had walked with Ram and Rem, those worlds really had existed. Which was why, there's no way you girls knew this, but... What? I love both of you! The blunt, worrywart big sister. The sarcastic, superficially polite little sister. Subaru thought fondly of the days he had spent with both girls. They were precious memories to him, even though they had killed him more than once. Enough that, if he had the choice to spend time with them once more, that was a choice he would make. Subaru's shout made Ram open her eyes wide, freezing in shock. Of course it did. From Ram's point of view, Subaru's declaration was meaningless, empty nonsense. Furthermore, he had already abandoned them in an instant. Ram's thought process froze for only a moment. In the next instant, her body thawed and leapt into action. But a momentary opening was an opening nonetheless. Subaru's sprint was just a moment faster than Rem's switch to anger-filled attacking. Turning his back to Ram, Subaru rushed past Beatrice, his body moving like the wind, making a beeline toward the cliff.
Wait!
Behind him, a girl's high-pitched wail reached out. Subaru's mind never caught up to which girl's voice it was. He'd meant to be determined, but now his thought process was in tatters, like someone had clawed it apart. His heart beat hard, and his body creaked all over, as if to betray his mind. His limbs felt like leaden weights. He was running with all his might, but the world seemed to move in slow motion. It was as if Subaru's mind was putting off the results of his change of heart as long as it possibly could. So stupid. He was conflicted even then. He knew why. He tenaciously clung to living without shame to that point. Even when he'd wanted to die, he chickened out in the end, able only to fall to his knees. But Subaru could do it now. It's rude to Beatrice, huh? With those words, Subaru voiced his final regret and left everything behind. He raced to the cliff. A few steps more. He was too scared to count them. Pathetic. Insane. He had the urge to laugh, but he didn't laugh. He couldn't laugh. All that he was leaving behind was a life of living death. To Subaru, giving up on a future in that place, and he'd already died inside. If he could live as a dead man walking, he could do something with that life. And that decision, to do something instead of doing nothing, was the one only Subaru could make. I'm the one who can do it. His feet left the ground. He clawed at the air. He could touch nothing. He could reach nothing. So fast. The wind was strong. His eyes hurt. His head hurt. The ringing in his ears was distant. He felt like he left behind his beating heart. He couldn't hear the ringing. The ringing inside his skull was like a broken record. If it ended with his death, that was that. But if only he could go back, then... For she had cried out, "I'll kill you!" If he could go back, "I'll save you! I swear!" The moment after he had voiced his determination, his head smashed into the hard ground. He had heard the echo of something spectacularly breaking apart, and then nothing. The hate-filled voice could not chase him any longer. Nothing could. Not anymore. All that there was nothingness. Absent-mindedly, he looked around the nothingness of his mind. perhaps looked around was not the proper phrase. Eyes did not exist within his mind, nor did hands, nor feet, nor any pieces of his body. All that remained was his incorporeal, floating mind. Knowing nothing, aware of nothing, he looked about. Darkness, a room of nothing. A room that was a world without a floor or a ceiling, covered in pitch blackness so great that it defied thought. Suddenly, in the world of everlasting darkness, there was meaning. A silhouette abruptly emerged in front of his mind. The contours of the silhouette were slender and as pitch black as the rest, the upper body more of a fog, rejecting his mind's recognition. With the emergence of the human shape, the mind gained its first strong desire. He felt a breach in the cold as the shadow gently moved, as if to convey something to his mind. He didn't understand. He was aware of nothing. But for some reason, his mind could not avert itself from the shadow. "I cannot meet you, not yet." With that faint whisper, the dark world abruptly vanished, and in doing so, the shadow and his mind went with it. And that finally makes it to the end of Volume 2. Sheesh, man. I know I got into the anime of this, and I wanted to read it partially because of that, and partially because one of my favorite series didn't have its light novels read. But man, there were some parts that really hit hard. I'm sure you can partially hear it in my voice. I don't know how strong, and some of that sadness in my voice was purposeful. Thank you for listening to my silly little books. I've grown so much since the first volume at the beginning, started editing a lot better, fixed background noise, and soon, by the next book, I will have a new mic. This should be coming out sometime in mid-October, I believe. I think I'll have some No Game No Life coming out alongside it. However, I finished this on the 18th of September. I know, I'm withholding information from you, or content, I guess. But, hey, I've got to have a backlog somehow. And as much as I would want to upload them all at once, I don't want to have massive gaps of nothing, because it takes a while to edit all this stuff and all of that. Once again, thank you for listening. If you did enjoy this, please give it a like and subscribe. I don't like asking for that sort of things, but you know what? I'll give myself an excuse right now. I just finished this great book. Well, anyways, thank you for listening, and I suppose I'll see you guys next time. Bye.